Hi, my name's Katrina Jockety, and welcome to Inspiration, where we celebrate successful women in business, the arts and fashion. On today's show, we chat with celebrated cook Stephanie Alexander. We have a laugh with Fiona O'Loughlin, Australia's premier stand-up comedian. Financial advisor Sophie Roussos shares some tips on how to invest our hard-earned cash. We learn how to make the perfect Italian apple and ricotta cake. And we enjoy a night out at the opera in one of Melbourne's hip laneways. Enjoy the show.
Make a welcome, it's Fiona O'Loughlin!
Today on Inspiration, we're talking to Fiona O'Loughlin, Australia's premier comic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Fiona.
Well, thank you for having me.
So how did you become a comic?
I wanted to get out of the house, basically, and I was at home in Alice Springs with 3 little kids and not that interested in netball. So I joined a local theatre company and I'd be the MC. And someone in the audience said, "You're actually doing stand-up." It was suggested to me by the then Arts Minister, Shane Stone. He said, "Why don't you apply to my arts office for a grant and go down to Melbourne and check out comedy." And the minute I saw a stand-up and what that was, I was bitten. I knew then that I wanted to do it. I would do it.
So it's obviously a natural gift for you, and things you feel right at home on the stage. How does it make you feel to stand up in front of hundreds of people and having to make them laugh?
Well, it is one of the hardest, it's an old cliche, isn't that the hardest job in the world? And yes, indeed it is, if you're not funny. Storytelling comes very naturally to me, but it's not a normal thing to be standing on a stage and talking to hundreds of people. If I'd known how hard it was going to be at the start, I don't know that I would have had the confidence that I had.
Absolutely. And is there any advice you would give any other would-be female comedians?
What I love about stand-up that I think is separate to any other arts is that there's no board of directors. Like, no one can tell you that you can't come in because every city has an open mic night. So the only thing that can stop you from getting further ahead in stand-up is an audience not liking you, or yourself. There's, so long as you keep going and keep getting better and keep getting laughs, there's no one who can say you can't come in here, and that's what I think is so extraordinary about this game.
So persistence is the key?
Persistence is absolutely the key.
Is there any particular challenges female comics have? Like, is there something that particular to you, or do you think all female comics find they have their struggle?
I think it's like a lot of professions that have been dominated by men for, up until now. And I personally have found that what I've lost on the swings, I've gained on the roundabouts through being a woman, because once you get in, there's a lot of work that you can get because there's not many women, which is a plus. But the hardest part about stand-up is the beginning, and it's appallingly hard because you walk out cold, no one knows who you are, you're in a club and you've got 3 to 5 minutes to prove that you're funny without anyone knowing that you're funny. When a woman walks out, an unknown female comic, there tends to be almost a feeling in the room that the arms are crossed. Everyone's crossed because, here comes the chick, and she's probably going to die.
So you struggled with alcoholism. How did you know you had a problem?
It took me a long time. Well, how I knew I had a problem when I fell asleep in front of 600 people at the Queensland Performing Arts Centre. That was a slight red flag, as Oprah would have called it. But it actually took me a long time to realise, in a way, you're the first to know and you're the last to know. I thought that you had to be born one. No, I had an alcoholic uncle, and as a kid I was just like, why can't that guy just get his shit together? But then, bit by bit, once I got into my 30s and really hit my stride with stand-up, I couldn't help myself. It was, I jumped in feet first. One part of me knew I was in terrible trouble. One part of my brain, deep down, I'm like, you drink far too much and you are out of control and you make such a dickhead of yourself. Like, I've made so many, like, sort of, you like think you're hilarious, like, but really put your foot in it, make an ass of yourself, and it's the emotional hangovers just as much as the physical hangovers. But then this other part of my brain was like, yeah, but then you go home to Alice Springs and you could be there for 2 weeks and you don't even touch a drink. So no, you're not an alcoholic. Well, then you wake up in a hospital bed and you kind of put the pieces back together and find out that you'd actually gone on stage so loaded that you fell asleep.
And so did you go into a recovery program?
I call it my special lie down. My 28.
I had to lie on the couch for a little bit.
No, I went into a facility for a 28-day special lie down. Yeah. And it was great.
Yeah.
But then I had to, coming out is the hard bit, you know.
So how do you manage on stage now without your Dutch courage?
The shot of whiskey or the shot of vodka or the double shot or whatever I took actually blunted my tool a bit, you know, because I'm really, really scared and I still miss it. I still wish I could have that, you know, before every show. But what's happening on stage, what actually happens on stage now is that you're massively clear, and it's just been a whole nother thing I get to enjoy.
So you give a better performance?
Oh, much, yeah.
Better. So who inspires you?
I'm very inspired by my sisters. I've got a sister who has 4 children and she has rheumatoid arthritis, which is like, interestingly, we've become a lot closer since I've gone public with my alcoholism, because rheumatoid arthritis is something that no one can see as well. And I've got another sister who's got 9 children who I find very inspiring as well. And she's one of the funniest women I've ever known. And she actually gives me, she doesn't even know she does it. She will be laughing, you know, irreverently about God knows what, and she's really dry and she'll just drop a line and I'm like, that is so going in my next show. You know, I just lift her material and I charge money and she doesn't get a cent.
So what's next for you?
I'm just at the very beginning of a possible motivational speaking career, which I'd like to branch out into and do as much of that as I do stand-up. Yeah, and a writer. I mean, I'm nearly finished my first book. So.
Fabulous. Well, I look forward to reading it.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
It's been a great pleasure talking with you.
Oh, thanks so much.
It was lovely. And until next time, be inspired.
Have you ever thought about what would happen if you're unable to work and earn an income? How would you make ends meet, particularly if you had a mortgage or little ones to look after? In most instances, we're more concerned with protecting the assets we work hard for, such as our cars and our household contents. Rarely do we even consider protecting our very ability to earn those assets. Income protection cover protects your income in the event you're unable to work due to sickness or injury. Get involved, ask questions, talk to a financial advisor.
For more information on any of the tips or segments you've seen on today's show, please go to our website www.inspirationalwomen.tv. Next up, we chat with Stephanie Alexander about her Kitchen Garden Foundation. Learn how to make the perfect apple and ricotta cake at Sicilian Orange and enjoy a night out at the opera. Hi, today on Inspiration we're talking with celebrated author and founder of the Kitchen Garden Foundation, Stephanie Alexander. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie.
It's my pleasure.
So how did you get involved in cooking and food and the Kitchen Garden Foundation?
Well, I think as a child I grew up in a family that really loved to eat together, and my grandfather lived with us. He loved to grow food. So as a family we sat around the table, we enjoyed talking about what we were eating as well as discussing the news of the day, and it became a very important part of my life, and it's always been there.
So what inspired you to start the Kitchen Garden Foundation?
I think having spent 30 odd years in the restaurant industry, I was well aware that there are many people who don't have any intuitive understanding about growing food and the connection between the time of the year and what's available, etc. And I thought that it was really important that children have some sort of introduction that has to be enjoyable to everything about food if we want them to develop better food habits. And it seemed to me that the sort of interventions that were being proposed by government were not helpful. They were sort of negative messages. They were telling children what they shouldn't do, what they mustn't eat, and it was all sort of finger wagging and negative. Whereas what we hoped to do, what I hoped to do, was to find a way of just letting kids be hands-on, get them out in the garden, get them digging, let them get into their gumboots, let them plant the seeds and see what happens, and then let them pick the food, take it into the kitchen, learn how to cook it, and best of all, sit around a table with their friends and taste things they've never tasted before. And that really was the thinking behind the whole program, and that's exactly what has happened.
So obviously you don't run the kitchen garden all by yourself. It must be a collaborative effort. So how does it work?
It's a very big organisation by now. We started off with 2 people, me and a friend in my front room, and that's where it started. And we've now probably got 20 to 25 people employed at the foundation all over Australia, because we have a project officer in every state. It's hugely collaborative. It's marvellous. We have an outstanding CEO, Ange Barry, who keeps us all in line, but keeps us inspired, because she's a very creative thinker as well as a strategic thinker, and we work very well together. I'd also like to say that my own personal friends are very important in all of this, because I work very, very hard, and it can seem a bit much, and it's wonderful to have friends that you've known for 50 years that we can always just have a laugh and realise that life is nonetheless going to go on.
So how do schools get involved or families get involved in the Kitchen Garden Foundation if they wanted to start up a garden and a kitchen in their school?
Well, I think the key to it all is that somebody has to be the driver, either a parent or a member of the school council, and in most cases those people have been to see one or more of our already established kitchen garden schools. And that's usually the catalyst for great excitement, that those parents talk amongst themselves, they go to the principal, they ask the principal if he or she could visit some schools too. This is one way of doing it, but this is a very common way. And then they get onto our website, where we've got masses of information about how to apply for grants, and they have to fill in this fairly rigorous form, and then their application is considered, and eventually we make a selection.
Sounds like it's an amazing project, especially for young people that maybe are living in urban areas that really don't even understand where an egg comes from or where the milk comes from. It's sort of giving them grassroots experience into preparing wholesome food for themselves.
It does all of that. It also is fantastic for developing self-esteem, and for children who've got special needs, who find it hard to sit still in class or have some other need. This program is very engaging, and we find kids really, really want to be there. School attendance goes up on the days that kitchen garden classes are on offer. So it's all the extra things that make it so rich, that it also, along the way, along with gardening and cooking, what we're also finding is, of course, that there's so much educational stuff that's going on. The children are measuring the whole time they're in the kitchen, they're estimating, they're understanding the properties of egg whites, whisking, and new language. In the garden, they learn all about the environment, they understand about the importance of good soil, feeding soil, water management. There's so much happens, and it all happens in this hands-on, practical way, so the children hardly realise how much they're learning.
It's a fabulous idea. So how can parents take this philosophy home with them? You know, if they've had a busy day at work and they're trying to manage their kids and they want to prepare something healthy at home, what would you suggest they do?
Well, of course, there's no easy answer, and if family patterns have been established in the past whereby mum does everything, this is much harder. I think it's very important to try to establish a family pattern where that evening meal is, people all have responsibilities, kids help, dad helps, you know, whatever. It's a shared thing, and it's something that people really look forward to, and at least several times a week the family should plan to eat together, because that's what brings family interaction, hearing about what happened in everybody's day. I think that's incredibly important. I have written The Kitchen Garden Companion, where I've tried to say practically how people, even with small gardens or balconies, can grow some of their own food. And I think even in an ordinary sized pot, you can grow a cherry tomato, you can grow a single eggplant plant, you can certainly grow herbs, you can certainly grow fresh salad leaves. So it isn't rocket science, and you don't have to contemplate a market garden in order to give yourself pleasure at home.
And it's all about enjoying food, enjoying the family, and sitting up to a meal every night. And there's some really easy steps that people can take. Just at least, let's start off with one night a week that we all sit down and, cook together. It's a really great idea.
It's fantastic, and of course the interest in food continues to grow, and I would like to feel that the interest in food isn't just about fancy food, but that it is about how to use straightforward ingredients that are accessible to everybody in a speedy way, but still end up with something that's absolutely delicious.
Absolutely. So what inspires you as a person?
Well, I think probably at this stage in my life, I would say the most inspiring thing is to visit the kitchen garden schools and see the children, because I'm greeted by faces smiling from ear to ear. They can't wait to take my hand and show me their garden, to point out what they've done since the last time I was there, show me the chickens, and then with a sense of surprise, I'm taken into the kitchen and there find there's a whole lot of activity going on, and those kids can't wait to sit down and bring on the beautiful whatever it is. The other day it was spicy zucchini fritters, it was a caramelised leek tart, it was a green salad, and it was a pumpkin soup. Now that was all made by children who were aged 8 or 9, and they were so proud of it, and everyone ate it.
It's truly inspirational to see young people being so excited and creating amazing food. And what's next for you?
I think next for me might be more of the same. I mean, increasingly the foundation is a diverse number of people, and I'm really now the person who inspires the others, and who is the figurehead, and who does a lot of lobbying, and who is the public face of the foundation, and that will continue. I think that I will always continue to be writing something. I'm currently thinking about my life, and that's quite something, a big project. I think I'd have to say more of the same.
I wish you all the best and so much more success with the kitchen garden and your own writing. And thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure, Katrina.
Thank you. And until next time, be inspired. We're at the fabulous Sicilian Orange Cafe in Paran, and we're with Pina Lazaro, and she's going to make us a fabulous cake. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So what are you going to make for us today, Pina?
I'm going to make ricotta and apple cake, which has got a beautiful amaretto.
Yum.
Well. Yeah, yum.
And that is the Sicilian specialty?
It is.
Fantastic.
So we started with 185 grams of soft butter, 100 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
We beat the butter and the sugar. 3 eggs.
3 eggs.
Okay.
So this is, how long do you think this takes to prepare all up from start to finish?
Oh, I say about 15 minutes. So now we add the lemon rind and the milk, which is 3/4 cups of milk. And now we add 1.5 cup of flour, 1 self-rising and half plain. So now
There you go.
we put half of the mixture. This is ricotta cheese. That's 350 grams. And you mix it with a bit of sugar, like 2 tablespoons of sugar, and cinnamon. Now another tip,
Yeah.
if you put the ricotta near the edge, it tends to come out.
Okay.
So leave it just about 1 centimeter. Now I put the apples, which I already put some sugar in the apple,
Okay.
cooking apples of course. Now I'm going to put a little bit of fresh grinded cinnamon. And it's ready to go in the oven.
Looks amazing. So how long would we put it in the oven for and
1
what
hour.
temperature?
1 hour at 185. When you put a cake in the oven, I always put a stainless steel bowl with water. It keeps the cake moist.
Oh, that's true.
The cake is out of the oven already.
Oh, voila! Do you want to give us a cut and
Yes,
see what
of
it's
course.
like inside? I do have a sweet tooth. Look at that.
Buona?
Deliciously moist, buono. Grazie mille.
Prego, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And until next time, be inspired.
First comes a little Gary Outlet. Then comes another Gary Outlet. Gary Outlet. Gary Outlet.
I'm with Alison Rae-Jones from Opera in the Laneway. Thanks so much for joining us on this wonderful evening.
Oh, thanks for coming.
So what inspired you to start up Opera in the Laneway?
Well, I lived for about 12 years in London as a freelance opera singer, and while I was there I did some chamber operas in a place called Wilton's Music Hall. And Wilton's Music Hall's the oldest music hall in the UK, and it's smack bang in the middle of the East End, and you go up a little laneway to get to it, and it's a warehouse kind of facade, much like the Guildford Gallery.
It's awfully eclectic, just like the East End of London. So what sort of music do you play here?
We do, it's all opera, but what we've tried to do with this show is just do the hits and highlights of opera, so that, there's two types of audience. The audiences that come that are opera goers, but there's also the new audiences, and a lot of our audience have never stepped foot in an opera house before. So we've tried to do the stuff that, people will recognise about 80% of the pieces, even if they've never been to the opera, because it's songs from movies or from advertisements or cartoons. So it's things that are kind of in people's consciousness without them even knowing.
First comes a little Gary Outlet. Then comes another Gary Outlet. Gary Outlet.
It's a fabulous idea, really whet people's appetite and get them into opera.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, if you grow up in Europe, as a kid, you probably get the chance to go along to opera, but it's not necessarily the case in Australia. So this is a great opportunity for university students just to come and have a taste, and then who knows, maybe they will go to the State Theatre and
Get
see.
inspired and get into it further.
Exactly.
So you have your own opera company, is that right?
Yeah, it's a concert opera company. I knew moving back to, because there's a smaller population in Australia, obviously, and I knew deciding to move back to Melbourne, you have to generate a bit of your own work as well. So I started La Prima Opera, to take, we do tours to regional Australia, all around Australia. So we wanted to take opera to, venues that are unusual and far away, but also just to generate work because there are a lot of established opera singers that choose to live in Melbourne, but we need to generate a bit of our own work as well.
Fantastic. And what's next for you?
Well, next for me, I've got a bit of a break. I'm actually a full-time student. I'm doing a music business course, just because the business side is completely new to me. So I've just finished a tour of Mikado, which was great fun. But now I've got a bit of break and I can concentrate on doing some study.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. And remember, if you want any more information on any of the tips or segments you've seen today, please visit our website, www.inspirationalwomen.tv. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, be inspired.